All right, so our page is looking great. We have our products being displayed. We can hide our products back and forth. So things are looking really good. Next, we're going to start acknowledging this filter by box. And the idea is that eventually we're going to be able to type something in like rake, and only our rake is going to be displayed, or whatever we have in our filter box. So we're going to build on that for the next couple of videos. In this video, what we'll do is we're going to do two-way binding. In other words, so far we have gotten data from our class, and we put that data from our class onto our web page. We've also gone from our template to our class. In other words, here when we clicked on the button, we called a function that was created in our class. So now what we're going to do is two-way data binding. In other words, what we're going to do is, let me just create a new property here, and I'm going to call this list filter, and it's going to be a string. And I think I'll start off with the word filter me, something like that. Okay, and so what we're going to do then is when the user types something into this input box, that input box is going to update our list filter property. So if I type in rake, list filter becomes the word rake. And then it's going to also update from our class to our template. We're going to have it type in or spell out whatever was typed in here next to our filter by. So two-way data binding. In other words, here's our input box. So when the user types in something in input, our list filter in our class is going to get updated with the new string. And then whatever that new string is going to update itself in our H4 right next to the word filter by. So two-way binding. Type in here, send that to our class, and then our class is going to send that data back to the template someplace else. So that's where we're headed. All right, so let's tackle the easy one, and that's filtered by. So we're going to do data binding like we've done before, and I'm going to put in list filter. And so you should see list filter is taking the default that we gave it. So that's very similar to what we've done before. But now we have to go the other way. And that is we have to go from the input box and notify our class of the change. And so we're going to come into this input here. And inside the closing angle bracket, I'm going to give myself some room. And I'm going to do this, which is a little weird in syntax, but it is what it is. I didn't write Angular. I'm just showing it to you. So I'm doing an open bracket, open bracket, and then inside the open bracket an open and close parenthesis. And I'm going to type the word ngModel. And then I'm going to type, after that equals, we're going to bind using ngModel, which is just the word that we use to bind our data from our template and notify our class that there's been a change. So we're going to bind that to list filter. And nothing should be working yet. I knew that was going to happen, in case you're curious. Sometimes I don't know errors that are going to happen in the midst of these videos, but this one I did know was going to happen. And it says, can't bind to ngModel since it isn't a known property of input. So it turns out that if we're trying to manipulate our forms, we need another external library called forms module. So back to when we got started here a little earlier, we talked about app module. And in our app module, which is our root module, we need to let it know about another external module. In other words, the app module, the Angular module called app module is aware that it needs to bring in some libraries to create this browser, but now we need it to know that there's some things that it needs to be able to import or be aware of, or libraries it needs to use in order to work with forms, which is where ngModel comes from. In other words, I'm going to put a comma here, and I'm going to type the word forms module. M-O-D-U-L-E, there we go. And if it doesn't come up automatically, which it doesn't seem to be doing, remember that the squiggly underline is saying, okay, I will import it, but where do I find it? Where do I import it from? And so how do I find that file? So up here, I'm going to type in import, and I'm going to let it know, because from documentation, I was able to find where it exists, forms module, and that comes from Angular Core. Angular/core, not Angular-core, it's Angular forms. There we go. And so now all of my squiggly lines should go away. That looks good. And then my page came back, and that looks good. And so if all has gone successful, then when I type in, looks like filter me is in here. So I do have the input box getting the default. So let's try and put the word rake. And you can see that two-way binding is working because as I put in a value here, as I'm typing it, it's also being updated from the template to my class, and then my class is changing that value here in my template. So that's where we're going to get started. In the next video, we're going to take that to the next level and say, okay, whatever was typed in here, filter our products by that input. So that's our next video.